Judge Lyman must be hating his life right about now. Hello, my fam. Perez Hilton here, the queen of all media, the original influencer, and the #1 source for everything It Ends With Us saga. As I previously told you, Bossy Blake has filed many subpoenas against not just Justin Baldoni, but a lot of people. She's subpoenaed not only cell phone records, but also emails and more. Baldoni's lawyers have responded to the judge, submitting a letter saying that that was overreaching, unusual, and a fishing expedition. Blake, no receipts. Lively is looking for receipts. Well, Judge Lyman told them to try to figure things out, and they could not. So now, even more letters have been filed to the judge. Instead of reading the letters in full, I'm going to try to break it down in more normal person speak. Layfolk. So, Team Delulu have subpoenaed AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and is asking for all of this information, including location data. They believe that this will provide them with proof that there was an orchestrated smear campaign against the soon-to-be 40-year-old oxygen inhaler. Baldoni's team says that this is an overreach and that it could expose communications that have nothing to do with the case. They allege that Blake and her team want access to every call and text made by not just Justin Baldoni, but Wayfarer employees, and not just ones directly mentioned in her and her husband's lawsuit. His team is worried that this could expose private communications with not just lawyers, but with doctors and other unrelated individuals. His lawyers say, if the cellular providers produce call and text logs of all phone numbers with whom a Wayfarer employee communicated, the Lively parties will be able to use a reverse phone lookup function to identify every doctor, medical practitioner, lawyer, relative, friend, and any other person with whom the employee communicated, regardless of whether such communication was related to the claims of defenses herein. Additionally, they argue that the courts routinely reject such overbroad discovery requests, and the same should happen here. They argue that Taylor Swift's former bestie has not justified why they need every single call log beyond trying to track down the when and the how. They suggest that the subpoenas are merely a tool for harassment rather than legitimate discovery. And, this is so good! Baldoni's team is asking the judge to completely throw out the subpoenas. Even if narrowed, they say that the request is still overbroad on its face and should be struck down. Bum, bum, bum. They do admit that Team Delulu narrowed the subpoena, but not enough, they say. Well, their letter to the judge was 2 pages long. The villainous Virgo's was 3. The plantation princess argues that Baldoni's team is misrepresenting the subpoenas and their purpose. They've already agreed to limit requests, no location data, no content, never asked for content, just logs of who texted, called, whom. Yet they argue that Baldoni's team still objects, refusing to suggest meaningful modifications. Their removing the location data request is meaningful, and that is a new development that I was not aware of prior to right now. The Beanie aficionado says that in the meeting to discuss all of this, Baldoni's team made dramatic claims about the subpoenas exposing 5 mistresses or 5 psychiatrists, but Lively's team calls this misleading. I need to read this part verbatim, okay? This is a matter of public record. In a letter sent to Judge Lyman, lawyers for the ex-girlfriend of Penn Badgley say, quote, To crystallize their position as to the subpoena's putative overbreadth, counsel for the Wayfarer parties indicated that the subpoenas, as issued, would problematically reveal whether Mr. Baldoni communicated with 5 mistresses or whether he had communications with 5 psychiatrists. Pause. There's more, but this feels a little shady and a bit of a low blow because Justin Baldoni has publicly spoken about being neurodivergent before. Or do you not think this is shady and a low blow? I want to hear from you in the comments section, but let's get back to what they wrote. 5 mistresses or whether he had communications with 5 psychiatrists. While a non-content subpoena would not reveal the identity of either mistresses or psychiatrists, it would reveal vitally important information about the phone numbers defendants contacted and when they did so, each of which is highly relevant to Ms. Lively's retaliation and defamation claims, as well as being entirely permissible in the course of ordinary discovery. Pinocchio's team argues that the phone logs don't show identities, just phone numbers and timestamps. They argue that courts routinely allow this type of discovery, especially in retaliation and defamation cases where proving behind-the-scenes coordination is key. They also point out, again, that Justin Baldoni's team has no standing. They argue. I need to thank Mary Jane, More with MJ, a lawyer and content creator, for providing the basis for this video because she's helped to make the language of lawyers a little bit more palatable. So shout out to More with MJ. She also shares what is likely to happen next. A remote or in-person court conference is likely coming, says More with MJ. Judges don't love ruling on discovery fights. They want the parties to work it out first. Since that's not happening, a remote conference could be the next step. One side says the subpoenas are a massive privacy overreach. The other says they've already narrowed them and that Baldoni is misrepresenting what's actually being asked for. The judge will want both sides to clarify. Since the Never With Teeth Icons team said that they are modifying the subpoenas, the judge could push this off until modified subpoenas are served. If not, the conference will help the judge cut through the legal posturing and get real-time answers. More with MJ reveals what happens in this type of conference. Direct questions about the subpoenas, legal arguments are made, pressure to compromise, good luck with that, and a decision on whether to allow, refine, or quash them, which might involve the cell phone companies. And that's the latest with the subpoenas of it all. But as I previously told you, they're also fighting about the protective order request from the self-appointed fashion icon. And we haven't even begun discovery yet. And we also haven't gotten yet an official response on the record in court to her amended complaint. That is, I think, the final step before a possible settlement. I just really don't see this going to trial still. It's a distraction. It's a disturbance. It's great for me, but it's not great for either of them, their spouses, their families, their businesses. I could be wrong, but look at Kesha and Dr. Luke. They fought it out for years in the legal system. And then right before the trial was set to start, they settled. It's possible this might drag on a while longer, but I still don't think it'll make it to trial, which is set to commence March of 2026. So, thoughts on the mistresses and psychiatrists of it all? Thoughts on what we've learned in this video? Let's discuss in the comment section.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds, alleged once upon a time a mistress. Yes, Blake Lively, I'm talking to you. Even if Justin Baldoni had 5 mistresses and or 5 psychiatrists, that has no relevance to this case. If you guys are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, we're talking about the footnote in this letter to the judge trying to convince him for Blake's team to be able to subpoena the 15 phones. And you know, all the phone records from the last 2.5 years. And in the footnote, they say that the Wayfarer parties indicated that the subpoenas as issued would problematically reveal whether Mr. Baldoni communicated with 5 mistresses or whether he had communicated with 5 psychiatrists. While non-content subpoena would not reveal the identity of either mistresses or psychiatrists, it would reveal vitally important information about the phone numbers defendants contacted and when they did so, each of which is highly relevant to Ms. Lively's retaliation and defamation claims, as well as being entirely permissible in the course of ordinary discovery. Since they're using quotations, it seems like they are quoting Justin Baldoni's attorneys. So it sounds like maybe they had spoken with Justin Baldoni's attorneys and they were trying to give them an example of saying like these subpoenas would not even let you know whether Baldoni had 5 mistresses or 5 psychiatrists. I'm guessing they were saying it jokingly or like as an example. But of course, they put that in their footnote because they want to win over the public. The moment the public sees 5 mistresses, they're going to be like, look, he's a bad guy. He has 5 mistresses. Yep, that proves Blake right, even though it proves nothing right. It is so clear that Blake Lively's team has nothing that they are now going for character defamation. They are fishing for anything at this point. And I hope Justin Baldoni sues her for defamation and for a smear campaign because that is what she is doing. The fact that they are being so dirty and like below the belt is just so unprofessional. Only people I think it'll win over are the people that have been by her side like no matter what. You know, the delusional ones. The ones that no matter even if they read evidence and it proves Blake Lively wrong, they'll still believe her. I'm sorry, but Blake Lively is worse than Amber Heard. I don't know, like, what she's thinking. Her attorneys, I do not know what they are thinking. As I saw someone say, Justin refused Blake being his mistress, so now she's digging to know who his mistresses are. A joke, obviously, but it was funny. Lastly, I feel like this just weakens Blake Lively's argument completely. It seems like without these subpoenas, they have nothing, and they keep telling us they have all this evidence, they have all this, and then they're giving us these quotes in their amended lawsuit, but no evidence to back it up. I don't even think the subpoenas will help them. I think they're just digging for information against Justin, like they want anything against him that has nothing to do with the case. Also, the attorneys that are going along with it, like Michael Gottlieb, whatever his name is, such a stupid move on his part. I'm sorry, like he's a probably well-known attorney is my guess. He is letting Blake and Ryan ruin his reputation just like those co-stars on It Ends With Us because Blake and Ryan are oh so powerful, giving him all this money, but after this, he'll probably be out of a job.
So I've worked in Hollywood for over 10 years. This does not surprise me, but Page 6 is reporting that Matthew Lawrence on his Brotherly Love podcast had some tea to spill about Ryan Reynolds. And as I said, in my 10 years in Hollywood, people did not have kind things to say about Ryan, but listen to this. You guys remember Matthew Lawrence from, I personally loved him in Mrs. Doubtfire, but he did a film with Ryan called Bolt Neck, which was like, they wanted to go for Donnie Darko and it wound up being like a Frankenstein-esque story. Okay. Matthew Lawrence plays a character that revives Ryan Reynolds and Ryan Reynolds becomes like a Frankenstein-esque dude. There we go. Okay. Props to Page 6 for sharing this because I don't listen to Brotherly Love. Okay, so allegedly Ryan would threaten to walk off set. Where have we heard that before? And was doing, now this is kind of like a little petty, but was like trying to do a Jim Carrey impression that I guess like wasn't landing creatively for people. And they were like, be your own guy, be your own guy. And he kept like pushing this Jim Carrey thing. Okay, we can have creative differences. But what caught my attention was that threat to walk off set. And now where this gets interesting is, I guess the movie didn't do well. It wasn't really something I was going to go see at the time. I think it was 2009, but you can check Page 6 to verify. But apparently the movie didn't do well, and they blamed it on all these production issues with Ryan just being a complete diva on set. So expect more of these stories to come forward because as the ship continues to sink, people are going to feel safer and safer to be like, you know, I had this weird experience with him as well. Because prior to this, everyone was really afraid of him and Blake. And now people are like, I'm not scared anymore. So I guess thank you to Justin Baldoni for exposing this, because this has been going for over 10 years. Like, I've been hearing these stories all over the place since I worked in Hollywood. So thank you, Matthew Lawrence, for your testimony. And then Lawrence also went on to say that he definitely saw that Blake's behavior on It Ends With Us echoed a lot of behavior he had witnessed with Ryan. So he had Baldoni's back apparently in this situation. I don't know. We're going to keep hearing more and more of these. And you know what we're not hearing? People coming forward with stories of like, Blake was my hero. Like, no, it's not happening. Don't forget to catch me on TMZ today.
Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, you guys need to cut this playground fighting out, because Chelsea Handler is quite sick of the legal frenzy. She also agrees that this is not helping either one of you. At least that's what People magazine is saying when they spoke to Chelsea about this. She did allude to this being what she calls playground fighting, which would make it seem like they're fighting over something so minuscule, but dragging this out into oblivion. And I just don't see it that way. Blake came out first via the New York Times to basically accuse Justin and everyone involved at Wayfarer Studios of A, sexually harassing her on the set, and using a smear campaign as a way of retaliating against her for speaking up about it. So what I'm understanding is once that happened, Justin should have zipped those lips, went into the bushes, into the woods, and hid out until it all cleared. And then that way Blake could have her narrative, she could have her movie, and then potentially get the sequel rights. Why would Justin fight that? Oh, maybe because none of those things are true and he has every right to defend himself so he doesn't lose everything that he's worked hard for? I mean, just look at the difference between Justin's movie poster for It Ends With Us versus Blake's. See any differences? Do you know what the story's about? And as far as this legal frenzy of throwing everything out there, I don't see it that way as well. I think Justin did exactly what he should have done. He got a great lawyer, he got all the evidence, all of it, and he put it out in defense of everything that Blake has claimed. So am I supposed to believe that a couple weeks back when I pointed out that someone had spammed Blake Lively's Instagram with a bunch of PORN and it sat there for quite literally what seemed to be a whole day before someone on her team caught on to it, and then conveniently TMZ writes that someone spammed her Instagram with PORNE so that she could then use it in her amended lawsuit? Hello? So yeah, I don't want to wait until March 2026 to find out what really happened either. But as far as everything goes, as of now, things really do look like they're leaning in favor of Justin's side of the story and everything that he's put out. The timeline, the website, everything. He has done everything he needs to do to defend himself against whatever this Hollywood machine couple is trying to take away from him.
It didn't take long for Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' little planned skit on SNL 50 to come back and bite them in the ass. Team Baldoni went to bat to say, we're surprised that Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and their team are trying to keep this information from the public. Especially since Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are so emotionally damaged by this traumatizing situation that they had to go and participate in a planned joke on SNL 50 about this entire lawsuit, literally in the public's eyes. As public as you can get.
Hollywood is about to unravel Ryan Reynolds just the way they unraveled Ellen DeGeneres. It took one person to start pulling the string, and then it all came undone. Ellen DeGeneres was actually not nice to her guests, not nice to her staff, not nice to people out in the public. And people started talking, and that seems to be what's going on now. People one by one are going to start coming out of the woodwork and talking about their experiences, regardless how this turns out for Blake Lively. So, I don't know. And look at Ellen. I mean, she's living in another country. What's going to happen to Ryan Reynolds? He might be going back to Canada.
Not Sony trying to get out of this with their hands clean. That's really funny. We need to talk about this article from The Hollywood Reporter because it's quite interesting and brings up some really good points. How Sony got trapped in the middle of the Lively versus Baldoni battle. The article says that Sony had agreed to market and release the film only, but somehow they ended up becoming the mediators between Lively and Baldoni. But what is so interesting, and they mention it here, is that back in August when Blake Lively was getting tons of backlash for the way she was promoting the movie, the chair CEO of Sony was praising Blake Lively for advancing the conversation around DV. Mind you, the only person who was mentioning DV during that press was Justin Baldoni. And ironically enough, the same day this article was published, August 14th, that is when Blake Lively decided to finally post about DV, but only on her Instagram story because I guess it wasn't good enough to be on her feed. So now it definitely seems that the Sony chair CEO Tony's highly unusual statement that he issued seemed like it was probably pushed by Blake Lively. And mind you, Sony did not mention Justin Baldoni. They did not praise him. Sony, which declined to comment for this story, appeared to have little choice but to make Lively its priority since she was vital to the film's marketing and release. However, Sony has not been named a party in any of the lawsuits thus far, but they are cited by both sides and face its executives being subpoenaed if the case goes to trial. And a big mystery to many is how did Blake Lively's cut become the final cut? We now know Baldoni's cut was rated much higher than Blake's, so why was Blake's the final cut? Let's not forget, Justin Baldoni even said he was not allowed to see the cut until the world premiere. Another mystery is Sony saying back in August to Variety that they had no HR complaints against Justin Baldoni. But then in Blake Lively's amended lawsuit, Blake states that she called Sony production executive Angie Giannetti to log concerns over unwelcome and inappropriate behavior by Baldoni and Wayfarer CEO Heath on set. She went on to cite several examples of feeling SH or uncomfortable. And while Blake Lively did include some text between herself and Angie Giannetti, none of them specifically said anything about SH. Angie had sent her this text on May 26th of 2023. And the text from Angie read, "I will say what I did want to review, discuss, feels very, very small in light of today's news. I'm so sorry." And in Blake's amended lawsuit, it says the conversation with Miss Giannetti on May 26 was about Blake Lively wanting to file an HR complaint about Baldoni and Heath. However, The Hollywood Reporter is saying otherwise. Sources close to the matter say that Lively did log several calls with Giannetti, but countered the nature of the May 26th. It involved Lively asking to file a complaint about on-set COVID protocols. Interesting. The Hollywood Reporter goes on to say that Angie Giannetti allegedly learned from third parties about the other two unnamed actresses and their complaints against Baldoni and Heath. And since Angie told Blake she would have to file it with Wayfarer, Blake oddly enough decided not to file a formal HR complaint with Wayfarer. Instead, November 2023 drafted a list of the 17 demands that Baldoni and Heath had signed. When shooting resumed in January of 2024, for about 6 more weeks, Lively said there were no more incidents. However, Todd Black, a producer of It Ends With Us, informed Baldoni in February that Lively wanted time in the editing room with him for 2 days. Highly unusual request for a producer. And we saw the text between herself and Baldoni, basically her telling him that she wanted to get in there like now, she didn't want to wait. She ended up getting her way, and instead of the 2 days, she was in there for 11 days by herself. Again, another mystery as to why that was allowed. And funny enough, Blake Lively calls the final cut of the movie the Sony cut, but Baldoni and Wayfarer contend otherwise. In their amended complaint, they state, in reality, Sony did not have a studio cut. Rather, Wayfarer and Sony shared a studio cut. Should the director's cut not perform well in audience screenings, the studios collectively held the right to recut the film. However, this never occurred, as Lively used her promotional efforts to secure the final cut. And by now, we've all heard that Blake Lively basically threatened Sony and said, if you don't use my cut, I will not promote this movie. Maybe Sony should have actually listened to Blake, then she would have never gotten all the backlash, because the backlash started from the way she promoted the film. But Blake will still sit here and say it's actually a smear campaign that Justin Baldoni and his publicist planned. In Baldoni's amended complaint, a Sony marketing executive told Wayfarer that Lively was refusing to sign off on a trailer unless Wayfarer, whom she was not speaking with, would exempt her from signing long overdue paperwork that would have rendered her threats to not promote the movie meaningless. And Sony was particularly concerned that Lively would change her mind about reaching out to best friend Taylor Swift to secure the release of My Tears Ricochet for the trailer. But when Heath originally did not agree with this, Sony was frustrated and told him good luck promoting and marketing the film. And basically told him just finish with the director cut, then we'll see which one rates higher and we go with that. Then Wayfarer agreed. However, Blake and Sony lied.
They did not keep true to the word that they would release the best performing cut because Blake's was released and it performed worse. Let's not forget that Sony told Baldoni that Team Lively would not allow him at their premiere. A settlement was negotiated and he walked the carpet before Lively arrived. We all know he was thrown in the basement. Hey Sony, I get that you don't really want to be involved in the lawsuits, but you were definitely involved. Like, they need to be definitely subpoenaed.
Well, this is unexpected. Hello, my fam. Perez Hilton here, the queen of all media, the original influencer, and your #1 source for everything It Ends With Us saga. Right now, we are currently in the trenches with these two, the legal weeds, so to speak. As I have shared with you, his team and her team keep fighting back and forth, submitting multiple requests and inundating Judge Lyman with letters. But I did not see this coming. Today, Team Fake Lively. Is that too much? I was thinking of using Fake Lively and Snake Lively. I don't want to be old Perez. Maybe I won't use Snake Lively, but Fake Lively seems okay. Fake Lively. Okay. Today, Fake Lively. Today, the oversharer extraordinaire added a new member to her legal team. And they went out of their way to acquire this latest attorney. The allegedly diverse actress, self-proclaimed of Cherokee descent, informed the court today that there is a new lawyer on her team. Team Delulu is represented by Wilkie, Farr, and Gallagher, LLP, with her lead attorney being Michael Gottlieb. Joining them and helping in the fight against Justin Baldoni is attorney Matthew Bruno, whom they've brought on board from another law firm. Matthew Bruno works at Manat, and his bio says, Matt is an experienced litigator whose practice focuses on antitrust, complex commercial litigation, white-collar investigations, and business disputes. He represents clients throughout all stages of litigation, from discovery to trial. His clients range from Fortune 500 companies to entrepreneurs and startups operating in an array of industries, including telecommunications and technology, entertainment, retail, healthcare, and life sciences. More recently, Matt was co-trial counsel in a high-profile antitrust jury trial in which he represented a network reseller plaintiff challenging a Fortune 100 company's business practices. Matt also maintains an active pro bono practice representing military veterans in service discharge appeals, criminal defendants seeking clemency, and amicus curiae in key constitutional issues before the United States Supreme Court. Now, is it just me, or is it the only way to interpret this that her team thinks they need extra help? They don't have what it takes to take on Team Baldoni, who is being supported financially by the billionaire co-founder of his production company, Steve Sarowitz. That's right, our boy Steve is paying all of Justin's legal bills. Billions compared to her husband's hundreds of millions. That's a big difference. And while it might not seem like this is a big deal, I think it's a sign of lack of confidence in the way things are going right now. It's a sign of weakness. It's a sign of we need more help, so we're going to get more help. I think that's the only way to look at it. Do you agree or disagree? Let's discuss in the comments section